I also recommend that we, well, I think we can agree with that. I also recommend that we hire Ms. Shree Livingston as district testing coordinator. And, I'm saying that, yeah. And then I recommend, by committee recommendation, that we hire Coach Norman Snurling as girls basketball, head girls basketball coach. Those three.
So moved.
Second.
Director Hart?
Yes.
Medford?
Yes.
Hodges?
Yes.
Conyers?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
Dillon?
Okay, and then I'd like to ask Mr. Hoggett to go out of the room for just a minute, and I would like to recommend that we hire Brooke Hoggett as the district parent facilitator.
So moved.
Second.
Director Dillon? Yes. Ray?
Yes.
Conyers?
Yes.
Medford?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Okay.
Come back in.
Get back in here. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our school board meeting, and I will leave it to the board to, okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Director Hart? Medford?
Yes.
Hodges?
Yes.
Conyers?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
Dillon?
Thank you all for coming. We've never had this many people at a board meeting. I appreciate it. And on my way out, this may be my last board meeting, and so I'm going out with a bunch of people here, so I'm happy about that. I hope. All right. To begin our question and answer session, I would like to ask Dr. Charles Stein, who is he is our personal facilities advisor. He is going to present to you how we came to the decision that we came to, and how it all plays out. And Dr. Stein, like I said, worked for the ADE for 10 years as facilities coordinator.
Good, very good. Thanks very much. I have seen, I guess, a lot of Facebook posts, I guess, and seen a lot of that. And some of my slides, I know, have some responses there as far as those posts. So really, that school millage election, new schools and all is on funding, right, and money. And so anyway, we all need knowing that the state over 10 years or so has spent a lot of money for new schools and renovation of schools. And so we in Zwingli now need some money, and so we're interested in some partnership funds in the school district. So as far as funds though, the state, so you need knowing that school districts must pay some share of that. And so you pay your share, and the state pays your share. And so school districts' share is based on a wealth index. And so a wealth index is the process involved. It says you're a rich district or a poor school district. And somehow the process now is based on a mill value per your number of students. And so if you're losing students, like in Brinkley, the process, if you will, makes you seem richer, so you're losing funds. And so now, actually, the wealth index, you're perceived now as a richer school district, so your state share is around 17 or 18%. So leaders at the state, have seen the problem really as far as the wealth index, and there's some processes now in place, and so your wealth index may have the opportunity of having a higher number in 2 years or so now. So again, that's a very tentative process. So I read in the Facebook post, I guess, schools are needing stuff, and so we have spent 2 years on this. And the reason is that the master plan, the partnership process really runs on a 2-year cycle. And so anyway, here's the 2-year amounts of state funds there in those cycles. And so you're always tied in a cycle. So again, the state tells the school districts starting around 10 years ago, school districts, you must turn in master plans now. So here's the schedule of timelines, and so we have this a 2-year timeline and schedule, and say school districts, you must submit your master plan. And so your master plan is really the opportunity of a school district seeing your needs you have and then assessing your strategies and plans of addressing your needs. So your master plan then is your foundation of all the needs and strategies in your school district. Again, it's a state plan, of course, and the state tells you the master plan, you need all of these various pieces. And so a school district's master plan is not something that superintendents or school boards send in for a fund. The state tells you you need a master plan, and they also say you need all of these pieces here. So in your master plan again, you're assessing your needs in your school district. And so one need in the school district is your amount of space. And so is your size of your schools in your school district is size properly for your students. In other words, that some school districts need additional space and some less space, and so you need assessing your size. And so again, the state tells you the size of schools you must have. And so here is this tool here, the POR, tells you the size of schools you need and the actual spaces you need per your number of students. So we ran the POR for your schools. And so you see, based on your schools in Brinkley you have, so your schools now, you have around 97,000 square feet of more space in your school district than you really needed, satisfying state standards. And so again, you know, of course, if you have more space, that's so you're spending money on insurance and maintenance and all that, and so you're really spending money on space you're really not needing. So as far as your need of space, the answer is we need no new space. We actually need less space. So the other part seeing your need now is your status of your school buildings. Are your school buildings new, fairly old, or old school buildings? So the state has this a term there of value of buildings, and so the state says a normal life of a school building there is 50 years. And so once you have reached that time in the school building, it's a zero value. It's some number. And so again, the state's master plan process says once you reach a zero value, your master plan must say in there, tell us your strategy of a building. In other words, are you saving your building, you using that, or renovating that? And so here's your list of zero value buildings. So here's your list of all your schools and the buildings where they have served some life of 50 years or more. And so again, your master plan state it says you need addressing all those and letting us know your plan, your strategy of all those buildings. So really, as far as a school building, it's kind of like cars. Really, the options you have are three options really as far as a building. So one of the options is you replace the building. So the other option is fix it up and repair it. Plus the option is leave that, I guess, and walk off and leave it. So the process also, as far as the state is, the state is saying we need seeing a renovation number as far as the building. Plus we actually need seeing the actual new price of the building. And so the actual max standard nationally is that if you renovation cost you have reached 65% of a new cost, prudent use of money is saying you need some new instead of renovation. So we had a number run. So here's some real numbers now as far as the elementary school. We had the estimate of $7 million now is needed in this school here as far as the options seen here. So your new school is a smaller school again. You're actually needing less space, of course, and so the actual size now of a new school is this, and so a new school is a little less than $10 million, and so your ratio of 7:1 against 9:6 is 74, and so state again is saying if you're above 65, the prudent use of funds is you need to place a school instead of fixing it up. So in a high school, same way, it's a renovation of nearly $10 million on the high school. Size of a high school is a little larger school. It's a $13 million school, and the ratio is 76. And so again, we have numbers there as far as fixing up a school and a new school, and so all of this is saying your smartest use of your money is placing a school instead of fixing it up. So using all of that again, the school board approved the actual plan of placing the elementary school plus the high school plus the idea of using one site, as soon the opportunity really of saving space and saving money. So here's the overall state timelines again. In other words, it's not as some school board or a superintendent a timeline again. It's a state mandated schedule and a timeline. And so here we are now in the school millage election. So really that tells you, I guess, a lot of state timelines, the state processes. It tells the school board process we use of seeing needs and addressing a strategy.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Stein. I just felt like we needed to be reminded of the components of the facilities plan, and I appreciate him doing that. So at this time, I'm going to just open up for questions. I'd like for Dr. Stein to stay up here. I'd like for Michael McBride to come up here with us. He is our, and he'll answer questions. Dr. Stein will answer facilities questions about the timeline and those kinds of things. Mr. McBride will answer questions about how the millage works, and then Mr. Brad Montgomery, if you'll come up. Mr. Montgomery is the ADE Director of Facilities and Transportation, and he will answer any questions that we have about what the ADE expects of us at this point. And I'm going to ask you to limit your questions to, 2 minutes or so. And I'm going to ask you, as Beth had some really good rules last night, turn your cell phone off, don't talk amongst yourself, and be nice. When I was a teacher, I had 3 rules in my room. I said, be good to yourself, that means you come prepared. Be good to each other, that means you're nice to everybody, and be good to this place. Don't tear up anything before you go home. So those are my rules, and I ask you to keep all those rules, by those rules tonight. So I'm going to moderate, and I'm going to just ask questions, and if you have a question, I'm going to recognize you, and you stand and ask your question. Okay?
I have a question, but it's really a serious question. And is there any way that we can go back on these screens where I can ask them?
Okay.
If you'll go backwards, I'll tell you where my first question is.
All right. Let me do that. Okay, which slide would you like for me?
I can't see it.
Why don't you come right up here?
You want to ask a question while he's looking?
Yes.
I would be curious to know how long this process that the state has developed to come up with this index, to come up with the plan and the 65%, how long that has been in place? Because, we in good faith renovated our beautiful old high school that means so much to our community in 2004.
Okay, you would like to answer that?
Certainly. Brad Montgomery, Division of Public School Academic Facilities and Transportation. Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Goodwin. So to answer your question specifically, the partnership program has been in place since 06-07. That was the first year of partnership. The year prior to that, there was the transition program, and the year prior to that, there was the immediate repair program. So 04. And so initially it was a 10-year master plan process, and because of a lot of pushback from the districts, the division and the commission reduced it to a 6-year master plan. So districts are required to plan ahead 6 years to inform the state on what they intend to accomplish in their school buildings, with their school buildings, and then apply for partnership funding. And Dr. Stein did an excellent job walking through that with these slides. Apply for partnership funding, to which the state would apply the wealth index that he explained and help fund the construction of the public schools in the state.
Okay. All right, are you ready, Mr. Brown? With
Yes,
your
I
question?
am.
Okay.
And there's still not a slide that I would like to see, but there's one slide that shows that we have so many extra square feet over what we need. And just for figures, just say it was 50,000 square feet. I don't know exactly what the
I think
exact
it's
number is.
90.
There we go.
It was in the
All right.
40s.
90,000.
90,000 square feet that we have excess capacity. All right, then the cost to remodel the school was, I think, 7 million for one, 6 for the other maybe?
7 on 1 and 9.
All right, 7 and 9, all right. Was that remodeling the whole 200,000 square feet, or was that just remodeling the square footage that we actually need for the student body that we currently have?
That quote of $19 million total included all of the buildings that we occupied this time.
All right. So my question would be, would it not be prudent to look at just remodeling the square feet that we do need for the size population of the student body currently and tear down the rest of the buildings instead of, my question, I guess, what would that do to the total cost that we would need if we were to renovate 90-something thousand fewer square feet than what this estimate was compared to building a new one?
So the division, thank you. The division does what's called an FCI, Facility Condition Index, and Dr. Stein had that in one of his slides. The division staff, we send 3 individuals out, and they do a full inspection of the facilities, and that's where Dr. Stein's slide said if the national figures indicate that if the facility reaches 65% or higher, the state does not consider it a prudent and resourceful use of state funds to renovate that facility, rather to build a new facility. Sort of like your car. If you found out you had some major problems with your car, a new car costs $10,000, repairing the car you had cost $6,500, you know, that's 65%. So most people probably would look at replacing the vehicle. So that's just a simplified analogy. Yes.
If we're looking at renovating 90,000 fewer square feet, wouldn't that change that index to a smaller number? That 65, the magic number where we're at, every number would it?
No,
Would half of the building, basically, we're looking going from 200 square thousand square
it would
feet.
not, because each building is analyzed independently, and each one of the buildings has been deemed 65%. So
In another, to add to what Dr. Goodwin is saying, you saw on the slide, you have a 1926 building, you have a 1927 building, you have a 1938 building. You know, barring that building being on the National Historic Register, say like Central High School in Little Rock, which practically cannot be torn down, the state would not partner with Brinkley Schools on investing in that facility.
and that's all of our facilities,
What-
the same story.
Plus the size of buildings. In other words, you know, you have more space in your buildings. And so a point, of course, sounds valid. The issue is you have more space in your buildings, so you may not spend money on some of your systems in the building, not all of that. And so your school buildings, your school functions as far as your shop and your music and all of that, those are all spread out. And so, you know, really if you have the opportunity of only spending money on just a part of a building now as far as the renovation, the answer you said is right. And so though, as you know, though, if you spend money on a roof, you spend money on all your roof.
Okay, another question? Okay.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
just make sure they understand, if you remodel, the state pays nothing. They don't pay a dime.
I understand that, I would rather spend $100 and remodel than spend $10,000 and stay give me $1,000 back.
They won't. I mean, we don't have the money.
My question is, we're relying, you said, on the state helping us pay, but aren't we only at 18% maybe? That they're even gonna kick in if they kick in?
Let's let, Dr. Stein speak to that.
So if you notice in one of Dr. Stein's slides, he indicated that Brinkley gets approximately 18% of any project approved, paid for by the state, 18% currently. Now, that wasn't the case many years ago. Brinkley got about half of whatever it applied for and received, was approved, funded. In the future, Dr. Stein is part of a committee that I'm part of, as are 19 other members throughout the state of Arkansas, and we've tried to wrestle with this problem about our small rural schools not getting a fair shake on the wealth index. You saw in one of his slides, it said when you lose students, your district appears to be wealthier. When you gain students, your district appears to be less wealthy. That's because two main factors play into the wealth index: the ADM, the average daily membership, and the assessed value of your district. That's all your real, personal, and utility property throughout the school district. So, if it comes to fruition, what Dr. Stein and that team is working on, Brinkley would get some help. And I think his slide said about 66% of any project paid. So, yeah, I would just foot stomp that point that he made very subtly in his slide.
Right now, while we're about, we are at 18%.
That is correct.
Yes.
I go back to the basic question. In 2004, we did a lot of renovation on the high school, and it was falling down at that time. Why did we do that?
I wasn't here in 2004, I don't know.
Well, like I say, I mean, do the state or somebody inspect before you invest money when they find out the foundation is going away?
You want to answer that? You said the partnership didn't start till 2006, this is talking about, I don't know what was.
So we had immediate repairs in 04, 05. So that's when the big Lakeview lawsuit came to fruition, and the state acknowledged that it had to do something about its public schools. It was in the Constitution. And so in 04, 05, right out the gate, the first program was immediate repairs. Basically, we asked school districts, I wasn't there either, but we asked school districts to turn in your projects, what needs to get done right now to make your schools warm, safe, and dry. Then the next program was transition, and that was for the big projects that you thought through and started to plan out, and then finally partnership was the next program. That's what we have today. So your question actually was, why did we renovate this school in 04 if we saw this type of thing coming? I think it's...
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Evidently, the termite problem started way before 2004. Now, a contractor comes in and he wants to do renovation. Doesn't he have some responsibility to investigate the foundation for that renovation work?
Well, it depends what contractor and what he was tasked with doing for the district.
Well, I've done contract work a lot of times, and that I know there's some liability there.
So I presume this is the Terminex issue, and it's my understanding that this is a fairly recent discovery by the Brinkley District.
November.
November
Well, I mean,
last
the
year.
termites didn't start eating in November.
No, that's when we found it, yes.
Right,
So are you saying that contractor, in 2004, whenever it was
Should have seen that.
renovated, should have seen that and
Should have been in the terms of the contract. I don't know who issued
Again,
the
it depends
contract.
on what the contract was for that contractor, what was involved in the scope of work. But let me just go back to your termite contractor. That contractor has a liability policy. They're guaranteeing to the district, or to any of you homeowners, if you have a termite policy, that's what that inspection's for. That's what they're supposed to be doing for you. Those are the guys that crawl into the crawl spaces and shine flashlights everywhere. They're supposed to be finding those colonies if they exist, and either offering a treatment plan or determining what you need to do as the owner, what they need to do for you to rectify the problem. So that's where something went wrong. Versus the contractor. Now, a contractor certainly could have made whoever was the superintendent at the time aware of it for them to act on it, but the termite contractor should have caught that and determined a course of action.
And I will say, I don't know if were you at the meeting last night?
No.
Okay, I will say that the termite contracts going and appraisals and visits going back for 10 years say no termite activity. However, they were on campus each of those times for 10 minutes. So I don't want to say any more than that because we are in litigation. And we have a strong law firm.
I guess one of my questions is, the contracting part of it I don't understand. Who does the contracting? Like I heard last night that there was a roof.
Yes.
And the terminology is built up roof that started leaking after 2 years.
Okay, that would be in this building more than likely, and I'm speaking, not completely sure what I'm talking about here.
Well, it's normal in contracting, when you replace a built-up roof, you get a bonded roof, and it's good for 20 years.
Well, I can tell you this is what I know. The school district stepped outside of the contract and had someone else come in and do some repair work and voided the warranty. Yes.
Kind of want to expand on what Leslie was saying. I think one of the big questions everyone's having is we have all these buildings. Some of them are up, maybe not all the way up to par, but they won't take a whole lot to bring them up. Some of them are terrible. Why can we not shut down the ones that are terrible, renovate the ones, even this big long, and use what we've got and fix it? Can we not do that until we can get more funds, have longer time to discuss all of this? I mean, this county is not going to be able to support this for 31 years. I know ourselves, we're talking about over a month of our income just on our property taxes when this passes, if it passes. And we're small time compared to some of the big farmers.
I'm going to refer to Dr. Stein.
Yes, maybe the opportunity is there. Certainly looking at that. So as you know, though, you have two main large spaces, though, a building, here really in the high school, right? And so your smaller spaces and buildings are really not a lot of the overall space. So your main space really is in these two buildings. And so like I said a minute ago, you may not partially spend money on half a roof on a building. So that's the only problem really as far as only fixing up some buildings is your main spaces in two buildings.
I'm talking about shifting some of the stuff over into these buildings or whatever space. I'm not talking about fixing a portion of this or a portion of that.
The formula that he gave us, if it is 65, it's going to cost 65% of what the total cost would be to build, then it's a better use of your funds to build the new buildings. Okay.
Or a fourth course, we've got the cost of what it's going to do, how much it's going to cost to renovate versus new building cost, the amount of space we have.
That's all in this plan. That's all in this plan.
Okay.
Renovating all.
In your plan, that plan is for replacing.
Yes.
That, I have never heard anybody say anything about how much a
17.
structural engineer, what it's cost to see what, we don't even know what kind of mold, there's several kinds of mold. We don't even know what kinds of mold under that building yet. We haven't done enough research, as far as I'm concerned, to be able to make a decision based on facts instead of speculation. We don't know that we're not losing, still gonna lose more students and be consolidated. We're losing 50 a year, and if we lose 50 more, we could be down to the number that they would consolidate us, and then what is all this building for, and the money that we do, what is it gonna do? Where is it going? Are we gonna be in the middle of a renovation? If the state does not come back and adjust this formula, which we are told they intend to in 2021 or 2020, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen to us as a district? And I'm all for doing what needs to be done to keep our kids safe. I've been in schools where ceiling tile fell down on kids at Mariana when I was principal at Whitman. And I know what it's like to be in a school where things need to be done.
That happened in Brinkley this year too.
And I'm sure that I also know at the same time we built a prison over at Forest City and kept prisoners better than we kept our kids because people wouldn't pass the millage. I'm not saying don't pass a millage. I'm saying let's get all of the facts before I know we've got to vote this time. I'm against voting for it until we have all of the facts of what's going to happen with the lawsuit, what's going to happen with, with the state and the legislature. This problem wasn't created right now. In the last 2 years, like you said, this has been a problem we've had here for several years. Loss of enrollment, money follows the student. We haven't had the money to do some of the things that we need to do here for our kids. And my grandchildren go here, so I'm all for this district. I don't want anybody to think that I'm speaking against the district. I'm not.
Hold your question. I want to get his question. Go ahead. Okay. Well, I think she's finished now. But if I got the gist of your question, what's going to happen, Mr. Brad, if the millage does not pass? Is that it?
Are we good money after that? So we can see what's going to happen in the legislature, see what's going to happen in the lawsuit.
Well, I won't speak to the lawsuit, but I believe we feel fairly confident that once we provide the 14 recommendations that committee has voted out of committee to the commission, that the commission will act on the recommendation related to the wealth index, and we'll know at that point what goes before the legislature. Any change to the wealth index would have to go to the next General Assembly, which begins next spring. So if that happens, then it would be for the 21-23 school year. You are correct. So I guess what I would say, Dr. Goodwin, is if the millage passes, you have 2 approved projects, an elementary school and a high school. Then I would think Brinkley School District would need to do some serious thinking about taking advantage of the 18% today guaranteed, or ask the state to retain the project and rescind the funds that we believe we will be committing to pay the 18%, and then apply it in the projects in 21-23 and get the benefit of the lower wealth index, which is a higher state share.
Isn't that all still speculation? Are we certain?
It is. So the option is you have.
What ifs, but we can make a lot of what ifs, but what is the fact right now?
So,
It's 19%.
18%.
18% right now.
Yes.
So if we have to get into a building project with 18%, and this doesn't pass, and this in 2023 does, what do we do with that? What's going to happen with that money if we pass the millage and we get into a building project on the 18%? Are we going to come back and say no? Now we're going to wait until we get 65%?
Well, that's what I was
We've
saying.
already got involved in a building project, and we've already got it started. Can we do that?
No, you would.
See, that's what I'm saying.
So you're going to know the answer to the millage Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay.
Village voters too.
So you'll know that answer. This school board and the superintendent will have to make some decisions on the projects. You have 2 projects that they're approved, but you haven't received the official letter yet. All districts will receive the letter in the July timeframe. So those approved projects will be funded to the amount of your wealth index by May 1 of 2019. So I don't think there's a reason that won't happen.
That makes sense.
The 18%. So then the decision would be the districts on what to do with those 2 projects. So having passed the millage would be a good thing to that point, because you know at least you're going to 18%. It's just a decision of whether you want to move forward and seek the 66% or whatever that number was.
I can't put everything into the way it needs to be said right now. But I can tell you this, we are in negotiations and ways to figure out that if the millage passes, we can do some things like get the plans ready, get the site ready, but we can hold off on building, hopefully, until we get the 66%. Now, there's some what ifs in that, but I think there is a chance of that happening. We will make she said, will the State Department approve that?
Will the State Department approve that? Holding off when we pass the millage, to see what's gonna happen with these other issues.
Okay, so
Are they gonna manually
So
start
you have,
now?
so you have 2,
They don't demand it.
you have 2 approved projects.
Well, consolidate us or,
So you have 2 approved projects, you just haven't received the letters. Those projects are approved today, they would be approved 2 years from now because we've gone through with the district, done the inspections, done the POR that he indicated, so everything was in place. So that would be rolled over to the next year, but we would remove those funds. So if you were awarded the 18%, and then you notified us by letter that you want to rescind the projects or project, then we would rescind the funding and maybe free it up for another district. And then you would ask us to apply the same project to 21-23 or projects to 21-23. They're already approved, so now they just need to be funded.
So it can happen.
Doesn't matter if the village does not pass.
Well, here we go. So this is what we really want to know, right? So, you know, the carrot is the state. The carrot is the partnership program, the state providing funding, providing technical assistance and all these things. Well, it is the state's role when districts do not either maintain their facilities, when material failures present themselves, the district doesn't pass millages to upgrade their facilities, or if the district gets down below 350 students. There's a special circumstance you can request for 2 consecutive years, a waiver to get back above 350. But any of those conditions can trigger the division to recommend to the commission that a district be placed in facilities distress. The division can go further and require the district to provide a facilities improvement plan within 30 days. The division will get that plan, review it, and either agree or disagree with the plan or modify the plan and give it back to the district. The ultimate step the division may take is to seek through the commission's approval and request that the Arkansas Department of Education either consolidate, annex, or consolidate a district or annex a district, or in some cases starburst, if you know what I'm saying. You would take some students and they would go to one district, some students would go to another, and some would go to still another district. So those would be the options. Is that the answer to your question?
They can do that. They
Yes.
won't necessarily do it, but they can do it.
Won't necessarily do it, but it may happen.
What's the difference between consolidating and annexing?
Well, there are cases where a school district is consolidated into another district, and then there's a case where schools are broken up into other districts. And so some of it has to do with property and buildings. Yes, sir.
Hey, one of our big issues in our county and in our city is the declining population. Okay, our school probably 8 years ago probably had 1,100 kids when my daughter graduated. We're down to 456 now. Okay, I guess the guideline for consolidation is 350 kids. If you fall below that, I know Wiener faced that, had to go to Harrisburg.
Yes.
And so, I guess what I'm wondering about is, if we build this school, and 3 or 4 years from now, we're down below the 350 students, who decides where, okay, we'll probably consolidate with Clarendon or in the county, I guess that's how it works. But who decides where the main school will be? Or will they step out in the country and build a new school like Wilson Rivercrest or something? And here we are on the line for 31 years with a building that we have just built. I mean, we got to look at the big picture and not look what right now at this instant, and 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what we're going to be looking at. $18 million, if we could maybe fix what we've got now, keep it going for a few years, and find out if this consolidation process is going to happen. And if it does, then we've got a whole different set of circumstances. So my question is, who decides if we build this school, Clarendon's got their stuff, does the state decide how the consolidation will take place? That's not up to us locally to decide, right?
Yes, that's correct. And so much of what you said is spot on. In 2000-2001 school year, Brinkley School District had 1,053 students. You opened school this year with 493 students. Drastic decline, right? So, you know, it's our hope as a state that investing in facilities will help to turn that around in our rural communities, not just Brinkley. This is happening in many communities across our state. And so it really is hinged on industry. Your chamber, what your chamber is doing, what your mayor's office is doing here to bring industry, you know, because jobs bring families. Families bring students, students live on, or schools live on students. And so there has to be kind of some work in that regard. You know, if you look at what happened over the life of the partnership program, we talked about it started in 06-07. To my understanding, Brinkley has only had one project that it shared state financial participation, $173,000 in all those years. Dr. Stein had a slide that showed $1.2 billion of state funding has been spread about the state for these facilities. So,
Sir, in the report from that committee, it states that there are 17 schools that have never received any funding, and Brinkley's one of those.
Yes, that's correct. The BLR, Bureau of Legislative Research report indicated that 17 school districts have never shared in state financial participation to date, or have applied and will receive funding. Still, Brinkley's one of those.
But if we build this building, is there any guarantee if we consolidated that we would get to use this building? I mean, is there a possibility we would build this building and then we end up somewhere else?
So, yes, that is possible, but it would certainly, of course, I can't speak for the State Board of Education. I'm in a different organization, but it would certainly have to be one of the considerations. If there's a brand new school building sitting here, or two brand new school buildings sitting here, and this district is now being consolidated or starburst into other districts, what is to come of these two new school buildings, and what do the other districts have to support those same students? So they're going to have to build to support your students? You follow what I'm saying?
saying they would come here?
Well, I'm
Probably.
saying the whole picture, I would think, would have to be looked at by the State Department of Education. You know, oftentimes, for example, it's not a good idea to take a K-6 facility out of a community. Maybe the high school would not be part of the community, but the K-6 or the lower grades. You know, that's happened in some cases. There's only been 3 cases that I'm aware of where districts were starburst into other districts.
There was, Mr. Brown, not Mr. Brown. There was something in your question that made me think that my financial advisor needed to answer it, but I don't remember what it was in your question. Do you-
Well, I just, yeah. Well, we're gonna be paying for the money for years, and if something happens and we do consolidate, and all of a sudden we're paying for a building that we're not even in, you know? I mean, there's no guarantees that that wouldn't happen, and I understand your point, and it's a point well taken. There's no guarantees to us that it would end up that way.
When the schools consolidate, they consolidate everything. So it would be distributed.
Yeah.
Everything, all of the income and all the tax base, everything would be distributed.
You'd be paying for buildings in other districts. Your millage rate would have to be levelized if you were consolidated. So whatever district your house now is in, whatever that millage rate would be, you would have a vote, and if the voters agreed, your millage would then become that, or it could go up, it could go down. You really would lose a lot of control, really.
Okay. Next question?
Let me ask you something. Should this not pass, the millage not pass, who is the one person that was guaranteed to lose money?
I don't know that I understand the question. Do you know the answer? I mean, is this a rhetorical question?
I'm sure it's the people selling the bonds.
Okay. Well, you're probably right.
That is one person that's guaranteed to lose money,
Okay,
or lose something.
Can you ask the question again?
okay.
I don't think people heard.
You wanted to hear what he said. He said, who was the one person guaranteed not to lose money if this millage passes?
Guaranteed to lose money.
Oh, guaranteed to lose money?
If it doesn't pass.
Oh,
If it doesn't pass.
Yeah.
I had it backwards. Okay. So the bond, he's saying it's the people who will.
The finance end of it.
Finance the bonds. Okay. I don't know, I'm not following. Do you think they are pushing it? Is this
No,
what you're
I'm
saying?
just saying, who is the one person, okay, the possibility that the children won't have a nice place to go to school and all that.
Children win?
Yeah, but the one thing that's guaranteed, somebody will lose money if it doesn't pass.
If it doesn't pass, the school's gonna lose the school's gonna lose money.
All right. He had a question.
So, no, I'm good. So my question would be, can y'all remind us the purpose of this whole, moving forward in the process? Like, who does this benefit? Because I don't want to feel like it's a my thing. So who are we trying to help in this whole process? Because I think sometimes we lose focus on the overall picture of it. So
The 500 children who attend this school every day.
Okay.
And the, 458 is of the last day of school. We always have about 25 show up at the beginning of the year. But, and also the teachers who go out and buy groceries in this town, and by, the teachers who go to the restaurants in this town. Anybody else want to help me out here?
If the village passes, they won't be no restaurants in this town.
Okay.
How you fix that?
How you figure that?
How you fix it?
First off, I sent my kids here, I love all the kids here, and
sometimes we have businesses that support our football program. We have band boosters. They're not gonna have money to do this. You're gonna lose in the long run extra help from businesses that give grant money. When I say grant, scholarships. We have extra programs that we are funding through the public from small businesses.
Okay. Comment, all right?
Hi, so I think there's been maybe a little misconception on the price of the millage. I brought these to several of the other meetings. This is a tax table. It'll give you a good idea of if your home's value, how much your taxes will actually go up. So just want you to know these are up here, take them. They've been out, we've had these for the other couple meetings, but I've seen some of the calculations online and they're just not as accurate, I think, as you would believe they are. So just want y'all to have that well, so a millage is like 0.1%. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to take the actual value of your home. So if you bought your home for, let's say, $100,000, the assessed value or the number in which you multiply that in is at 20%. So that's what that tax table will show you. If it's your actual home, your homestead, you're going to get a state credit on that for about $350. So that shows you all of that as well. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this financial question, if the millage passes and we build the 2 new facilities and consolidation takes place, Brinkley geographically is at the northern end of the state, northern part of the county. Clarendon's towards the middle. Everything consolidates to Clarendon. We're still paying 31 years of taxes.
Well, you're going to pay property taxes no matter what happens to your school.
No, just the increase.
Well, so what's going to happen is that bondholders are going to have a legal right to that tax. There's going to have to be, that money will have to be paid off. If it has to be restructured because you've been consolidated, that will occur. But, I mean, your property taxes will still exist no matter what occurs with your district. You're not going to all of a sudden, because you don't have a district here, not have property taxes. It just will depend on the local school district which you are now incorporated into, what that property tax is. So property taxes vary from district to district.
So we take our 48.5% with us. I mean, how does that work?
Well, theoretically, you could. You could, if you were now in, let's say, Clarendon School District, they could, in theory, this is what happens at Wiener and Harrisburg. There's never been an agreement. And so they actually levy 2 different millage rates within the 2 different districts. So you could, in theory, if let's just, I mean, not to say that they would, but just in theory, if Clarendon's board said, you know what, we're actually going to increase our millage rate. Well, their voters voted down because they don't want the increase. You voted down because you would like to decrease your millage rate. That would then cause both millage rates to revert back to the current, and you would be stuck with where you're at. So you would be paying a higher millage rate than the people in Clarendon, even though you're in Clarendon School District. Does that make sense? Clear as mud? You're going to be, the bottom line is, if you get consolidated, there will have to be some sort of reconciliation of that property tax. Well, you'd still be accountable for the bonds. I mean, the new district would actually be the one that is accountable. So that new taxing entity, Clarendon, Brinkley School District, however you'd want to define it, that tax base would now have, yes, the consolidated district would now have would be responsible for the debt. Yes, absolutely.
But our property tax would still be 48%.
They could, in theory, go down. They could, in theory, go up. So, ma'am, do you have a question?
Well, I just want to simplify. If you basically, say you pay $1,500 last year, you look at 35%
Yeah.
I mean, all this doesn't mean anything, you don't know what it's like to start.
Well, or you don't know the value of your property or land or
Well, that's what
anything
I'm
of
saying,
that nature.
but we know what we pay. Most of us know what we pay last year.
Okay.
Unless we've added to it, and a lot of farmers have added, they add to it, but it cycles out and resource move. So
Absolutely.
basically, 1,500 now, but if you do, it's 2,200.
I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, a local school district is not free, and I understand that is definitely an increase that is a concern. But, you know, I mean, it really comes down to what you want as a district.
When you don't have over 2,000 in income, that's true.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, one more question?
So, my question, so correct me if I'm wrong, the state requires school districts to put up 25 meals for maintenance and operations already.
Yes.
So everything above that is based on the value of what we feel like our school is valued, either way it goes. So for me, as a person who graduated from Brinkley, is in Brinkley, and my mother lives here, my family lives here, outside of my emotions of what I have attached to Brinkley, can we make some kind of informed decisions and thought processes on how we value? We say we value it so much, and we open with prayer, so I would believe all of us believe in God. God says, to whom much is given, much is required. It says, where your heart is, your treasure will be there also. So if we really value it, I would say we buy into whatever the plan is based on how we want our community to be in the future, not necessarily what's happening today.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smiley asked me to comment on the declining enrollment. Our enrollment has declined right at 50 students per year. 15 of those students have been by school choice. That means they have opted to go to a neighboring district or somewhere. You still live in our district, but they want to go to a different school. That leaves 45 students that the reason they have left is because there are no jobs. There are no jobs. And so we're not just speaking about one issue. We're speaking about several. But yes, to answer his specific question, he asked me how long before we would be in that target of consolidation. And I would say if things continued at the same place, it would probably be 3 to 4 years. However, we have, according to the ADE today, they told me that the way that they figure things, we're only down 8 students from last year to this year. Now, I know that we've lost more since then than that was figured, but I also know that those students that move out, that a lot of times they come back. So I really believe that we'll be back up some next year. So I have to say that to be honest, I have to say that if the trend continued 3 to 4 years, but we're going to break the trend. That's what I want to see.
Question? In the count of the students, is the pre-K included in that?
No, the pre-K is not included in the count for K-12 education.
And if we close down, the pre-K would also close down? More than likely?
More than likely. Yeah, more than likely.
Okay, any other last questions?
I think we have to remember that, you know, the millage increase is going to require $1 million a year to be sent to the county tax collector's office. And that money will be taken out of our pockets, and we won't be able to spend it at the grocery store, or at the beauty shop, or at the restaurants, because it's not going to be in our pockets as money that's available for, you know, whatever we choose to spend, because we're having to pay taxes with that money instead.
We should have a priority for our
I think that's a priority issue, and each person in this room has to decide.
educating our children in a facility that they can come and enjoy and actually learn something without something falling in being a hazard. I mean, it's up to y'all. I mean, you guys got to be the one to do it.
Senator Hill last night that Monroe County had the fastest decline in population in county.
Yes, he did. He's at the last census. Monroe County had the greatest decline of any other percentage-wise.
What year was that census?
So when, it ain't no job.
What's going to
When would they start building, if we approve everything? When would they start building?
Give me a little bit of time to answer that question. I mean, would it be 3 years? Or I'd say 3. Okay, question at the back.
Population decline like this, the building will need to be built in 3 years. We'd already be below the 350 limit. That's right.
That is a possibility. It's an if, and we've got a lot of, like you said, we've got a lot of ifs on the line. I think it depends on what you choose to believe in. Yes.
What happens to the money if we pass it and then in 2 or 3 years we decide that we don't have enough children to build it?
We would be consolidated and the money would go to the consolidated district.
Who's in charge of the money? And then they could vote again to lower the
Who's in
mills?
charge?
Charge of the money? Who divvies out to what, where?
So, like when the bonds would be issued, you get a lump sum of money. I mean, that money you would have what we call requisition forms. So there would be a paper trail. In other words, it would go into your bank. It would be a bank account that would just be bond monies. And so if the district wants to have it set up in a manner that the construction company sends a requisition to them, they get approval from the board, and then it's paid out through that account. It has to be tracked very meticulously because it's getting tax exempt rates, so the federal government is very interested in that money, so it will be tracked very highly.
Plus, I guess, may I say one point, I guess.
Can I have the mic so everyone can hear?
I served 10 years as a state employee, so I set up a lot of all this. So for 2.5 years now, I have served several school districts. I've served Springdale and Bryan, and Pea Ridge, and Berryville, a number of school districts. And so you need knowing though. You need knowing your superintendent, the school board, follow the right processes and timelines, form the actual team really of some numbers and data. And so once we had all of the facts and numbers and data, the state assisted us as far as looking at the plan. So you need to know your superintendent, and your school board, your state of Arkansas, all are teamed up forming this plan.
Thank you for saying that, because it's been a rough couple of days. I didn't just wake up one morning and say, I want to build a new building. The first week that I was here, the State Department visited me and said, y'all haven't been doing so-and-so for 3 years, and if you don't start, you're going to go into facilities distress. So this has been on the back of my mind now ever since the first day that I got here. And I've followed everything that the State Department has asked me to do. I've brought it to the board, and I've offered them all of this. I've had these guys come in, and they've had work sessions with the board, and the board has made the decisions based on the information that we were given at the time, and we feel that we have given you the best opportunity for the students in this school district. Now, I really did not want to resign. I wanted to stay and see you through this process. But many of you probably know, I have family issues, and I am going to be resigning. Ms. Poole, would you please stand up? This lady is going to be your new superintendent starting July 1. Her name is Brenda Poole. She is the most honest, forthright person that I've known in my life.
She is a person of integrity, and we built everything that we've done here together. And I trust her, and I'm so thrilled that she is going to be carrying you forward in this process. You got lucky. Or I should say you got blessed. Do you want to say anything? No, not yet. She's not going to say anything till July 1. You watch her. I appreciate you being here tonight. I want to leave with the same thing that I said last night at the other meeting. You go vote your conscience. You pray about it. You do what's best for the children in the Brinkley School District and for your community. I can't answer that question for anyone else in here. I know, but I will say there was one person asked what's going to happen if it doesn't pass. I do want to address this. If it doesn't pass, we have a lot of stuff that's got to be done to these buildings to make them warm, safe, and dry for our students. We have no money to do that with. Okay? We have $600,000. We do have that in there, but we have to keep a certain amount in there, and that's nothing compared to what we're going to have to do. The bid to just put a roof on 2 buildings was $1.3 million. Now, to patch it on one was 90 and 17. But I mean, we'll have to patch it again. We'll have to patch it again. So what I'm saying is, even if it doesn't pass, we're going back to the drawing board because it's not over. The State Department knows that our kids are not in warm, safe, dry environments, and they're going to expect us to do that. And we have a moral obligation to do that. We have these children depending on us. This is the only future they have. We are the cavalry. Nobody else is coming. Do what? I think you have to decide your heart. You are one vote. You decide your heart, and you vote your heart.
In the event that the voters decide that they do not want this 34.8% tax hike, how long do you think it would take the school board to come up with a new plan that would be a more conservative plan and ask for a millage increase of a smaller amount?
When could we ask for another millage increase?
When you can do a millage increase every calendar year.
So January.
January of 19.
Would be the first time that they would come up. And Mr. Montgomery is watching Google Earth and can see through the roof over here at the annex. He's told me on several occasions. Plus, our kids are feeling the ceilings are falling in every room. That's beside the point. To end this message, tell I've been going to church all my life. To end this program tonight, I thank you for caring enough to come out and ask these questions. I don't know what I could have done 2 years ago in 2016 to get you to come out when I started the conversation. But my first question was, what would you like to see in the Brinkley School District? And the number one answer was safety for our kids. We cannot make our kids safe in 22 buildings that anybody can walk in off of the street and go in any one of them. So, yes.
These buildings, is that brick as the mortar or wood, or is this metal building, or would you even consider metal building?
The new building?
They're much cheaper to build.
The new building is not, we have not decided yet, but what we have talked about is a metal building with brick covering on the outside, so it would look nice, but it would be cheaper to build. Yes. Yes. The tax what? I do not know the delinquency rate, but I do know that right now we have a 97% collection rate, which is higher than most other counties in the state. So, that has been a very, very good thing, and I appreciate you. Anybody have a last word?
Who is in charge of maintenance and taking care of the contract work on this school?
We have a maintenance supervisor.
He knows the contracts for the buildings that were built, what the requirements are of the contractor and all that?
We have built no buildings since he's been here.
No, but you built buildings.
Yes.
And there's certain obligations that the contractors have to maintain these buildings should something go wrong. Does the state do that?
No, not that I know of. I'm sorry? They inspect them, and they know
Well, I mean,
what...
before you had a roof put on here, did you go to somebody say, let's see if this thing is bonded, and rather than us pay another man to do it, you know?
We use Tips Taps representative. Do you know what Tips Taps is?
Never heard of it.
Okay. They are somebody else that's better explain that to me.
It's actually TAPS now.
Oh, okay.
TIPS was the interlocal purchasing system. TAPS is the Texas-Arkansas purchasing system. And it's where states have gone together to combine their collective purchasing power. And they have a building trades contract, they have new construction contracts, things like that. And so as a superintendent, she can go right to a contract and use a contractor that's already been vetted.
Well, like what I'm saying, when you issue a contract, there's terms and conditions, there's scope of work, all of that in there.
We have a construction manager.
Okay.
And that is Baldwin and Shell.
And that's who should.
And when it gets time to do any kind of bidding, they will be doing it.
I've just had my experience that a lot of people don't read the contract.
Right. Well, they do. I will say this board did a wonderful job in putting together a facilities team. I can't thank them enough for how they have led me through this process, because it was, I came here for instruction. I didn't come here to build buildings. But God has had a reason for me being here.
But somebody needs.
And I've had